Hi, how are you? Well, we are really here just to take some questions from you, some availability. We had our caucus elections last night, and I'm really thrilled to be working with Senator Bakk going forward and with Governor-elect Dayton to make sure that Minnesota moves forward, and we're going to do our best to work with everybody to make sure we make the right decisions.
Well, I want to offer my congratulations to Representative Thissen. I think he'll be an outstanding leader of the Democrats in the House. I probably spent more time with him as a House member than even my own House members over the last year and a half as we traveled around the state and bumped into each other in communities all around the state and learned about the state. I think both of us share, because of those campaigns, probably bring to these leadership positions a pretty unique recent experiences around the state in communities with press corps all around the state, editorial boards, and I think that's going to help us truly be leaders for statewide Democrats. Last night I did talk with Senator Senjum, and he has a challenge for leadership today. I don't know how that's all going to play out. I did this morning on the phone talk with Senator and Governor-elect Dayton, and we are planning to meet with him, Representative Thissen and I, next week, and a small group of our staff to kind of talk about that transition and how we can help each other as Democratic leaders in Minnesota. So we'll plan on doing that next week.
And I'm going to meet with Kurt Zellers later today.
It seems in a way Minnesota has not spoken. On Tuesday, 60% of the people stayed home, 40% voted. And you disconnected maybe a bit from the people out there. What can your party do in the future to reconnect to the people who don't vote?
Well, I think one of the things that we talked about last night was making sure that we continue to get out and talk to people in their communities instead of just focusing all of our energies right here at the Capitol. And I think that's maybe the most important thing we can do. I think people are just nervous, concerned about the direction the economy is going, that the state is going, and this election reflected that unease.
Well, I think the way I think of my position in leadership is probably different than you saw in the minority party in the previous legislature. I mean, I saw the House minority leader, and oftentimes even the Senate one, wave a veto pen around, that if we don't do what the governor wants, he's going to veto everything. That's not the kind of leadership that I hope to bring to the Senate. I hope to be able to work with the majority party, and we're going to have differences. We're going to have some very stark differences with the new leadership in the Senate. I believe you're probably going to see some differences between myself, Representative Thissen. You're going to see differences. You're going to see differences between us and some of the things that the new administration is going to propose. But I think what unites us is going to be much, much more, and what unites us with Senator Governor-elect Dayton, what unites us is much greater than anything that's going to divide us. And we share many of the same values, and we're going to advocate for them on behalf of the governor here at the Capitol. But I hope that the majority is willing to set a cooperative tone. They're going to set the agenda. They're in charge. And I guess, would request of them that we get started in a cooperative way. And I think the most cooperative thing that can be done is the people have spoken on the governor's race. 8,900 votes is a lot of votes. I don't believe there are that many errors out there. The canvassing board is going to certify that election, and I understand the recount is expected to be done sometime second week of December. And I think at that point, once the recount is done, we all ought to move on and get about the challenges that this state faces, because the state's facing some serious challenges economically and financially. And so I'm hoping that the new leadership is willing to accept the outcome of this election and not try to drag things out.
The two of you mentioned the friendship you developed while being candidates. Can you talk about the irony and what you learned that you were both gubernatorial candidates and now you're minority leader?
Well, I think for me, Tom mentioned this before. I mean, just the fact of a couple things, traveling around the state and getting into those communities and really hearing what's going on does give you a very different perspective on the challenges facing Minnesota and how they vary across the state. But also, as Tom also mentioned, there's really a lot of common things that hold us together. I do think that the time we spent also built a good working relationship together and with other leaders in our party and across the state, and with local officials as well. And I think that those relationships are going to help move the state forward. At least I hope that we can build on those relationships to make sure that we do what's right for Minnesota.
I just kind of jokingly told my wife this morning, I said, geez, won't it be fun to go out and have dinner with Paul and Karen some night? And we've been to breakfast before as couples, and so we're not new to each other. Our spouses aren't new to each other, so I think we're going to have a real strong relationship, trying to advance things that are priorities for Minnesotans.
Is there a concern among your caucuses that Republicans drag this recount process out and try to run the table legislatively with plenty in office past January 3rd?
Well, I think the media has been kind of anticipating that that's a possibility. I haven't had caucus members indicate to me that they're going to do that, and I certainly hope that they don't. I think Governor Plenty has publicly said he wouldn't endorse that.
Right, and I think that the most important thing that I've heard from members is that 9,000 votes is very different from 200 or 300 votes, and it seems clear to the membership, at least our members, that Governor Dayton is going to be the governor, and he should become the governor as soon as possible.
What are some specific areas you think you can work with Republicans, some common ground areas, and where might there be some areas where you have to draw the line and fight their initiatives?
Well, the economy, there is so much uncertainty out there I think in people's lives, and certainly a lot of it in this building with staff members. I'm probably going to have to lay off 40 people here that work for the DFL caucus. That's all over in our communities, all of this economic uncertainty. And kind of as it relates to that, the state's workforce development infrastructure, our educational system, our higher ed institutions are critical to the state's economic recovery. So I think if the new leadership starts to come after our workforce development programs, our educational systems, I think we're going to push back pretty hard because that is absolutely critical to rebuilding our economy and growing jobs and making sure that our Minnesota businesses are successful and growing.
And I think the things that we've been talking, as I've been talking to members, I think members are interested in being constructive and coming up with a solution to the budget, which is our big project in front of us that is, going to be fair to Minnesotans. And I think that we are going to have some serious disagreements about that. The reality is, and we recognize this, that the Republicans now have the responsibility to govern. And we will work with them as they'll have us, but we're also going to hold them accountable for the decisions they're making as governors or as governing, and that's the approach we're going to take. So we understand what our role is now, and we'll work with them when it's consistent with our values. But we're also going to point out the consequences of the decisions that I am anticipating they're going to have to make.
What chance is the Dayton tax plan having the legislature, and will you folks in your caucuses be fighting for it as it is now?
Well, I think the first thing, I think, is to just dispel the myth that new revenue's not needed. I think that is absolutely a myth, and it is, I would call it the Plenty myth, that somehow he uses the word taxes, but billions of dollars of new revenue have come into the state, local governments, and schools during the Plenty tenure. Just property taxes alone during the years Tim Plenty's governor have gone from $4 billion a year to $7 billion a year. That's all new revenue. There have been billions of dollars of new fees enacted into law during the Plenty years. So I expect they're going to try use the tax word I would rather use the revenue word, whether it's a fee or a tax or a property tax or a tuition increase. We got some of the highest tuition in the country at our two-year colleges right now. Those are all come out of your pocket the same as a tax. So I think first let's get over that tax word and let's just talk about, is there going to be new revenue in this budget or not? And there's going to be. And we're going to have some disagreement over what it is. Is it going to be fees? Is it going to be tuition? Is it going to be property taxes? Will it be an income tax? I don't know that, and we're not going to get to set the agenda. We're not going to get a lot of input probably in what's in the bills that land on the governor's desk, but we're going to advocate for what the things I think the members of our caucus, where we share values with Governor Dayton, we're going to advocate for them. But we're a separate branch of government too from the administration. So I think you'd be wrong to presume that we're going to pick up every initiative that the governor proposes and try to force it through somehow on the House or Senate floors.
Well, what do you agree with and what do you disagree with Dayton proposals?
Well, I think we need to see what's in his budget. I mean, I think that's just the truth. He is going to have to make a transition now from a campaign and the rhetoric and the sound bites that go along with campaigns to actually putting things into legislation. And I think it would be presumptuous to assume that anything that was said along the campaign trail actually ends up in a bill in front of a legislative committee.
Right. And we have to see what happens on December 2nd. We're going to get a new budget forecast.
What if Emmer becomes governor? How would you see your role if that is somehow the eventual outcome?
I don't think Tom Emmer is going to become governor.
I don't think that's anything we're contemplating.
How would you two describe your style? Minority leaders often just kind of have to be bomb throwers. How would you anticipate your style is going to be?
Well, I mean, I see my role really as holding the Republicans accountable. I don't see either of us actually as being bomb throwers in particular, and I don't think that that's actually served the state particularly well in recent years. But it's very clear where my caucus wants to go and the role they want me to play is to say, if you are going to be talking about rolling back regulations, that's good and we'll work with you, but if it means that we're going to be polluting our drinking water, we're going to call you on those facts. And if it means that you are going to be cutting our funding to schools in ways that's going to make our class sizes balloon to 35 per class, we're going to call you on that. And so I see my role as pointing out in a very factual way the consequences of the decisions that that the majority in the House of Representatives is going to put forth.
Well, I think everybody in this room probably knows I'm not an overly combative partisan person. That's not going to change because I'm the leader. But certainly we're going to have our differences with the minority, and we're going to drive a very tough bargain. We're going to negotiate very hard. At the end of the day, we're going to be fair.
In your election, how much weight was placed on getting the majority back? Was that the main thing that was discussed, or why were you elected?
Well, let me just say the majority of the members in the Senate caucus, EFL caucus, have never served in the minority. So I think the challenge is going to be, this is a big transition for them. And in fact, there's only, I think, 3 of us that actually have gone from the majority into the minority in '98. So it's a transition that's going to be very difficult for DFL members of the state Senate because it really is new territory for them.
What about the election? How important was that to get the majority back?
Well, I think more than getting the majority back is making sure that where we think the majority of Minnesotans are, based on some results in the voting and in the governor's race, that voice is given, that those voices are given a voice up here at the Capitol, and that we want to go out and talk to the people of Minnesota, but do our jobs right now in the short term of making sure that we come up with the right results for Minnesotans in the near term. So it really wasn't about getting the majority back. It's doing right by Minnesotans.
We have a constitutional obligation to enact a balanced budget, and the legislature has to work with the governor to accomplish that. Hopefully that'll happen by the end of the constitutional adjournment date. So getting beyond, I think our constitutional obligations come first over political ones, and we want to make sure, I think we're going to advocate very hard for, we certainly know there are going to be very difficult decisions. Much of what is going to be enacted in the next budget is not going to be popular with the public, but we're going to advocate for a fair, balanced approach in a budget solution as we can accomplish.
Representative Thissen, yesterday the governor said, we've heard from the voters, we just don't know what they said yet. Do you think you know what they said?
No. I think there's a lot of opinions about what the voters said, and we need to sort that out, and the best way to do that is to get out and continue to talk to them and engage with them. The one thing I know that the voters didn't say is that this is a mandate for an extreme agenda in either direction, and that is kind of the guiding principle that I think both of us will be moving forward with.
I don't think there's a mandate on behalf of the Republicans. I think somebody could fact check these numbers for me, but I think if you added up the DFL votes for state senators and the DFL vote, or the votes for Republican senators, I think you'll find that Democratic senators received more votes than Republican ones did on Tuesday. So I think when you look across the state, they hardly have a mandate when DFL senators received more votes than they did, and not by a small number.
Senator Bakk, is your caucus comfortable moving across the street? I know there's been great strife about what to do with the Senate and that only the majority members get an office here. Many of your members have never officed across the street. Is that a fair policy?
Most of them haven't been in the minority either. So there's significant changes coming. Not as radical for those of us that came over from the House that served in the minority, but it's going to be very hard. It's going to be very hard. Many of us lost really good friends in this election, really, really close friends that aren't coming back here to serve with us. We're going to be in a situation, right before Christmas, of laying off dozens of people here who are close friends, longtime staff members of the state Senate. And so there's a lot more, I think, to grieve about than just packing up some boxes.
What is your strategy in terms of any proposed constitutional amendments that start to get thrown around here, whether it's gay marriage or photo ID at the polls, those types of things? Obviously, Mark Dayton is elected governor, he has no influence on that. Do you guys have any kind of strategy in terms of handling those types of issues?
Well, I think, again, this was not an election that was a mandate for any pushing any kind of radical agenda in either direction, and I think that's the point that we will continue to make. Minnesotans, if there's anything that's clear from this election, it's that Minnesotans are fundamentally concerned about the economy, how they're going to put food on their tables, where their next paycheck is coming. That's where we're going to focus Minnesotans' attentions, and that's where I think the state government should focus its efforts, and balancing this budget. I mean, we have huge challenges to face, and going down that path doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I think we'll continue to make those points.
A half century ago, the congressional minority leaders in Washington had it was Everett Dirks and Charlie Halleck had the Evan Charlie show. We're going to see a weekly Tom and Paul show for you guys.
We haven't talked about it, but we want to be as available to you as we can.
I don't anticipate, and Paul and I will talk about it, I don't anticipate us asking you to give up your time to be here if we don't have something meaningful to say. And as a side, Senator Governor-elect Dayton called me when he called this morning, called me Mr. Leader. And I said, well, no, you forgot to put minority in front of that. And he said, well, in Washington, he said, if you're a leader, you're a leader. It doesn't matter which party you're in. So he says, I'm going to refer to you as Mr. Leader, he said. So.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.